I really do believe that we can feel for each other and we can try to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. But until you know someone who has a mental health concern, until you live with someone who has a mental health concern or work with someone on a daily basis, it's very hard to conceptualize what it's like for that person. And it's a unique experience for every individual who does have a mental health concern.
My name is Sam Denmark. I'm 24 years old. I'm a manager for Wawa, and I live with anxiety, depression, and I've been diagnosed with OCPD, which is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Depression, that's kind of like the overarching thing with me, I guess. I'll have my good days, I'll have my bad days. On the bad days, it's the only thing I can focus on, unless I have a panic attack, which is kind of a nice break from having a depressive episode. It's horrible. OCPD is really about someone who is basically obsessive over orderliness, control. So it's not as much as a lot of people would think, with OCD, which is more tics and having to rearrange things very properly, where I need to have a set cycle of things that I do. So for me, the first thing I do when I wake up every day, I have to take a shower. And if I don't shower before I leave or do anything, I feel like I'm gonna have a bad day because I'm not following my routine.
At this point, I pretty much lead with, I have a lot of mental health problems. You need to know this if you're gonna be involved with me in a friendship way or a romantic way so that they know. I'm Tiffany, I am 20 years old. I go to school at Temple University. I have anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. Sometimes I have highs and lows. So theoretically speaking, sleeping for 2 or 3 hours a night and then being awake during the day and not having to sleep a lot sounds really good. But then you're just oh no, my body needs sleep and I wish that I could sleep right now. But your brain's no, no, no. So with my anxiety, I get super tired, and I know it kind of sounds shitty, but interacting with people for long periods of times makes me absolutely exhausted, even if I love them. Even if it's just one of my friends, that I'm just okay, I've had enough of you. I can't spend an entire weekend all the time with a lot of people because it just it's too overwhelming. So I definitely have to take time out to make sure that I have a period of just resting by myself, in my apartment and doing nothing.
Depression's a cyclical thing because you're up, you're feeling fine, and then something happens and you go down. So it's an ebb and a flow, an ebb and a flow. My name is Asia Espinosa. I am 22. I'm a film major at Temple, and I will be graduating in May, and I live with depression. The stereotypes is we're always depressed. I'm no, I'm not always depressed. When I'm in a depressive state, it's usually I'm exhausted. It's tunnel vision. I can't really see out of it. I get very irritable, don't want to deal with anyone else's bullshit.
Somebody will say something and I'll kind of smile and look away, and they can think that I'm coming off as being cold or not being interested in what they have to say, but I genuinely don't know what to say. And then sometimes if they keep engaging me in conversation, I can shut down after a while. I'm Morgan, I'm a student, I'm 23, and I live with anxiety. Can't really pinpoint a time when I wasn't anxious at all. I can remember being about 3 years old, knowing that I was going to see relatives and just freaking out. It's a stream of consciousness that I can't turn off. And even though I try to, interject it with random thoughts, they usually don't make their way in, and there's not much I can do.
Leaving the house becomes a thing certain days. Today, I have yet to buy cigarettes, and I ran out last night, and cigarettes are only 4 blocks away, but there's something that tends to stop me from entering the world. My name is Brian Jerome. I'm 25. I'm a graduate student at Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, and I live with both bipolar 2 and post-traumatic stress disorder. Second-guessing different decisions I make. Am I actively making human choices in my life, or am I now just getting too dissolved in my own insanity to figure out what to do?
It's kind of cliche, but I totally get the not getting out of bed in the morning thing. I am Brandon Ard. I am 26. I'm currently unemployed, but I do art and screen printing and graphic design. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I'll wake up at 7 or 8 and have things to do. They're important that I need to get done. File for unemployment, you need to pay your PGW bill, you need to pay your student loans. Normally, anyone would just wake up and just be like, oh, those are on my to-do list today, especially since I don't have to go to work and I'm not tired after a job, but it takes me months.
Red was one of the first people I got to explain, like, I have bipolar, I do weird shit, and like living with him for so many years that like he knows when things are up with me before I do.
Before I met you, I really had no idea what bipolar was like and had like a very poor understanding of it. So like meeting you and getting to know like just how it ebbs and flows was really informative for me, and like now I understand it, or at least have a like loose grasp on it.
And that like it's something that never expected to have in my life, but it's something like I value so much.
I have glaucoma, and I don't think that it affects my ability to do my job. As long as I take my medication and my vision is preserved, I can still do my job. Okay, my name is Philip Braun. I have a PhD in clinical psychology from Temple University. I'm a licensed psychologist in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania since 1974. I'm a practicing clinician. My job here at Lenape Valley Foundation is, at this point, more of a clinical administrator. I don't have people describe me as a glaucomic, and therefore we have to watch out for this guy, because any moment now he might go blind and walk, and drive his car off the road. That's not what happens with glaucoma, and it's not what happens with schizophrenia. So,
my name is Julie Harbison, and I am a certified peer specialist at Lenape Valley Foundation. A peer specialist is someone with a mental health concern who also provides support to others who have mental health concerns. A lot of us still feel like we're holding some part of us inside, and that it's something dark that other people don't want you to have. And if you do have a mental health concern, the public perceives you as being not trustworthy, not reliable, not responsible, and violent.
Harm somebody.
Straight off the bat, they're violent.
People screaming in the middle of a busy intersection.
Shot up this school.
To me, like, that was mental illness.
Well, you got to get yourself together first before you worry about integration. And personally, I don't like being with anybody who does not want to be with me.
As a Black woman, a lot of times mental illness just isn't spoken about in the Black community, and it also is another pressure with like the strong Black woman stereotype, because it kind of becomes more of a stereotype and a way of the way you're supposed to live.
Black people just, they just have endured so much, and they just figure they have to continue to endure. It's like a collective consciousness almost. They've been through slavery, they've been through Jim Crow and segregation and discrimination, so your little mental illness does not compare to like collectively what the community has gone through historically.
It's just like, well, you go through shit because you're a Black woman, so you just deal with it, when that's not the case, and that's a terrible, unhealthy way to live your life.
The first thing that people have to overcome when they have a mental health concern is acceptance. They actually have to accept where they are, what they have. And for me, it took a long time. When I first started hearing voices, I knew that meant schizophrenia for me.
Of course, like my friends in high school, they could sense that something was going on, and you could feel it, like I shouldn't really tell anyone.
I thought that meant that I was going to be put into an asylum or a hospital and left there.
And my mom she noticed, and she was like, you're going back to therapy, and I think you should go on medication. And I was like, fuck no. Sorry. Edit that out. No, I'm not. And the whole idea of self-stigma comes in there. Like, I'm not going on medication. Then I'm crazy.
I did not tell anyone I was hearing voices for 4 years. 4 years I held on to those beliefs. I was surrounded by people who did not know and weren't going to know that I had a mental health concern because of the stigma that comes along with it.
When someone comes to Lenape Valley Foundation, we're very careful not to use their last name when we talk to them in the waiting room, because we have to respect their privacy, because they have all this, the rights to confidentiality. I go to see my glaucoma doctor, she calls my name out in full voice for me to come back and see her, because there's no embarrassment about having glaucoma, but there's an embarrassment about having schizophrenia. And so it's that public perception, and we even do it, we even perpetuate it. That example would suggest that we even perpetuate it.
The last time I went to therapy, I was still very closed off through everything that I was going through, and I just really didn't want to open up, and I was really sidestepping with what I knew the real reason why I was going there was basically I was going for grief counseling. And it all started when I lived with my friend Jackson, where he told me he'd think I'd be a good producer. He was a rapper, and we would bounce off ideas with each other, and he was really my inspiration. I had made a song with him about 2 months before he killed himself, and I never really thought about the lyrics that he was saying in the song, and then reviewing it on the year anniversary of his death, I was listening to the song, and it was just so apparent. I've definitely learned to cope with things through therapy, and I kind of went in there with I don't like my job, but realistically I went in there because I felt dead on the inside because my best friend killed himself, and I felt guilty about it because I thought I could have done something to stop him. And through therapy, I was able to work out a lot of those emotions towards the situation.
Cognitive behavioral therapy is so important. It's that's how I got to understand my own bipolar. Now I'm aware of it. Now I can pay more attention, tell other people, have him be able to pick it up before I even do. Making art is managed to my life. Even if I don't know what I'm making, if I now, the days that I have a hard time leaving, if I force myself to leave and go into a studio and make things, that just is such a release for me that then I can almost feel more normalized after 4 hours of hard creativity. And then drinking has gotten less, drug usage has been less, and this seems really the healthier route of managing it. You can even look at that on a historic sense, people that generally tend to be heavily creative have some form of quote-unquote mental illness. In my fantasy world, it would be that maybe great creativity is linked to what we consider mental illness, but you might have a hard time living with how your mind works, but you can tap into a way of making things that if you don't have a mental illness, you might not be able to tap into.
I like to draw, I like to paint, anything that'll help me kind of sidetrack and not deter myself from, having an episode or being triggered. I think art was my escape growing up. A lot of traumatic stuff happened to me around the ages of 9 to 16. So, and I don't have any brothers or sisters, it was just me and my parents, and they were going through their own thing. So I would just go and draw or just go and read, and that was my sanctuary.
Music is my outlet. It's my way to disconnect with everything that's going on. I get very much involved in my music that I make. It almost washes everything away for a moment for me, and I can just really get lost in music and not think about anything else. And I just think about the notes and the sounds and how someone got to this point where they're creating this art for themselves. And I do the same thing for myself, where I listen or I'm making my own music. So my advice for someone who thinks that they're experiencing a mental illness, I would say, talk about it to someone.
Start talking to somebody. Don't try to necessarily deal with it by yourself.
Maybe you're not really sure what's going on, just talk to someone about it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist or someone like that, always.
If it's a school guidance counselor, someone at a social worker at a clinic, or anyone, just go and then see what your options are.
Going to visit a therapist should be recommended for anybody. I mean, how great is it to go visit somebody who is objective, who's not a member of your family, not a close friend, and you can share whatever you want with them and bounce ideas off them, and they give you an objective opinion.
I think what people need to do is not be embarrassed by their discomfort, own their discomfort.
Because you're gonna feel, you're not gonna feel that much better, actually.
And it's always difficult to realize you will always have the depression and you will always go through ups and downs, and it's a scary monster.
Acknowledge it, not project the responsibility on somebody else. Let's not blame all the moms or dads. And seek a consultation.
More importantly, you'll want to cope more because you'll start seeing that things still suck in general, but there's some things that are really worth living for and really worth seeing, so you'll want to cope and you'll be happy that you went.
You lose yourself and then you have to find yourself. You have to say goodbye to the self that you used to know, and you have to become an integrated person. A little bit of who you were and a lot of someone new with new interests and new hopes and new desires. But it's a process and it can take years.
But you can get out. I got out of that hell.